Ow!
So, what are you working on over there? Well, I'm sketching up a tattoo. A tattoo? Yeah, I'm thinking about getting a tattoo. Yeah, I think they're kind of cool, you know what I mean? Like, maybe throw a Bible verse in it or something like that. Yeah, but like, tattoos are a sin. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of gray area around it. The water's just a little bit muddied. Yeah, but like in Leviticus, it specifically says, like, no tattoos. Yeah, I thought about that, but, I don't know. I'm kind of like more of like a out with the old, in with the new kind of guy. And I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool. Okay. What would Jesus think? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unscripted Faith. Episode 7. Are tattoos a sin? Are tattoos a sin? Well, how are we going to tackle this one? That's right, we're going to tackle it. I want to tackle it. I've been waiting to tackle it. Are tattoos a sin? Are tattoos a sin? Are tattoos a sin? Well, I think we need to kick this one off with a little bit of Jimmy Buffett for you. One of his lines from, just an amazing song, right? Fruitcakes. Give that a listen to if you ever get a chance. I treat my body like a temple, and you treat yours like a tent. I know it. You treat your body like a tent. Tattoos. Get out of here. What do you think, Petey? Call my bird Petey now. From like Dumb and Dumber. Pretty bird, pretty bird. A lot better than Polly. Okay, tattoos. Well, we're going to kick this off with a little bit of story time. And I remember this was probably back, in my mid-20s. And one of my cousins, a little bit younger than me, wild man. Yeah, he was pretty wild. And we're sitting on the back deck of my grandparents' house, which happened a lot in the summer when we all got together. And I'll never forget it. There we all are. We probably just got home from church, believe it or not, because we usually got together on Sundays, although I can't remember the exact day it was. But I know it was summertime and it was a beautiful day. We're all sitting there hanging out. All of a sudden, my cousin takes his shirt off. There it is. Big old, kind of like a Celtic cross, right there between the shoulder blades, right? Perfect. My grandma looks up, jaw dropped, and goes, "What is that?" "Oh, Grandma, just a tattoo. You like it?" "Do I like it?" "Pagan! Pagan! You're going to hell! Tattoos are a sin!" Whoa! Time out, Grandma, time out. Let's all take a breath here. So, luckily, he was the guinea pig, right? He broke the ice with that one, which paved the way for me, some years later. But it was just so funny, to kind of just hear that. It's like automatically, boom, you are a pagan. That's right. Going to hell. Tattoos are a sin. And it's something I've thought about, my whole life, and I still think there's an argument out there. Yeah, crazy. I think it's 2026, and I think there's still a little bit of a wondering going on. Is it a sin? Is it not a sin? So today we're going to put that nail in the coffin. Boom! And we're going to put this argument to rest. All right, so when we think about tattoos, there are two camps, right? Two camps to approach this from. You got the old school camp, so you have the Old Testament camp. Then you got the New Testament camp, right? And how do we make this work, right? Because the more you try to mix it, the worse it tastes. I don't care, you know what I mean? Old with the new, where are we going? How do we get there? What kind of recipe are we making here? And it's kind of funny because I still think there are a lot of like Leviticus arguments out there where people are like, it says it right there, no cuts, no marks, no tattoos. Okay, well, you better take those earrings out. Well, I can't get a tattoo, but you can punch holes in your ears? Right? Belly button ring? Get out of here. Tongue ring? No. Can't do it. Desecrating the body. And if my history serves me well, which it probably doesn't, I think it was at the time that this all came about when the Israelites were trying to separate themselves. There was a lot of paganism going on. Yeah, I can only imagine, right? Light stuff on fire. And the Israelites were like, well, if they're going to do it, then we're not, right? Sort of a deal. And it's funny because I'm not Israelite, so does that just make me like, technically, like, this doesn't pertain to me? Because if you want to go old school logic, then we have to follow the old school logic, right? So if we're going to go with the old camp argument of tattoos are a sin, because it says it in Leviticus, then we also have to go with the logic of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, because how could you believe one thing and not believe the other? Right? Wouldn't make sense. So, with that in mind, right, let's fast forward 2,000 years or so. All of a sudden, Jesus pops up. Jesus comes down. He goes, hold on. You know what? You guys have been arguing over this stuff for so long. I am going to put all this to bed, right? We are going to move on. We're going to solve this once and for all. And then all of a sudden the new camp starts, which is to me the Jesus camp, right? Out with the old, in with the new. What are we doing here? We're taking old logic, trying to mix it with new logic. So let's try to follow the new camp logic, shall we? So all of a sudden Jesus comes along and he does his Sermon on the Mount, which I think is probably one of the most amazing pieces of history and one of the greatest gifts, literature gifts, or speeches, if you want, that's, ever been recorded. I mean, think about it. He's like, guys, I'm gonna lay it out for you right here. Sermon on the Mount, right? My man Leonardo da Vinci, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. We're gonna make this simple. So Jesus comes along, he says, guys, just shut up for a second. It's not what enters a person's body that defiles them. It's what comes out of it, right? Interesting. So it's not what enters through our mouth which defiles us. It's what comes out of it. Now, if we use that new school logic, right, which would transition into like, instead of the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I mean, that's good. It worked for the era you guys lived in. Let's try to kick it up a notch, And maybe we focus a little bit more on love, like, maybe forgive. Let's love your neighbor as thyself. Try to love your enemies, maybe turn the other cheek, right? So if we bring that logic into the argument, it goes, okay, so if it's not what enters us, or enters our body that defiles us, it must be what comes out of it. So with that being said, I think that a tattoo enters the body, right, is not a sin. However, there are some buts, some big buts, in my personal opinion. Not those kind of buts, but, there's some things we need to consider about that, right? Now, I do believe, in my own personal opinion, which means diddly squat, probably just as much as his does, but I think if you are using your tattoos as like a weapon, meaning that if you are trying to invoke fear or you are trying to invoke hate or anything sort of along those lines, there could be a little bit of possibility that maybe it might not be the best consideration, right? But I honestly think that if your tattoo, whatever it is, if it makes you a better person, if it's part of your self-expression in a good way, not a bad way, right, then it's hard for me to find an argument as far as how it could be bad, right? And I think you guys know what I'm talking about, where with like tattoos that, you know, invoke like hatred or stuff like that. I mean, that I don't think I need to go into that. That's just common sense, right? Like, let's just knock on some common sense here, you know? But it's funny because I've heard so many arguments about this. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, I mean, gosh, a guy gets a Bible verse or a girl gets a Bible verse tattooed on her. Like, is that really bad? You know what I mean? Like, I think there's like a million other worse things that you could probably have on you that, you know what I mean, could be bad. And it's just funny the argument that happens because there was such a time where like any tattoo was bad. Like, dude, you're going to hell, man. What do you want me to do? I can't just take it off, right? It's on there now. But like I said before, you know, I think Jesus kind of put that to rest. And if we follow the logic, the new school logic, I think that argument is pretty much finished. So, I mean, I really hope that I put some nerves at ease for the people that do have tattoos. You people, right? My grandma used to always say, you people. She'd point at me and go, you people, right? That have tattoos, are considering tattoos. Or one day, like me, their kid comes home with a tattoo. Yeah. But I have a tattoo, right? I'll tell you guys a little bit about it here in a second. But, you know, it's just kind of funny. You know, it's like my little guy, he's like 6 years old. I was outside doing some things. And literally, I turned my head for like 5 minutes. He comes out of the house. And somehow he got his hands on a pack of these. I don't know where they came from. Maybe it was like part of like a Christmas gift or in school or something like that. I mean, I don't even know. Plastered himself. Comes out. He's like, Daddy, I want to get tattoos. Look at me. Just like you. I'm like, oh, man. Gosh, that's the toughest thing right there. Just like you. Ooh. I go, okay, you can do it. But you got to be like 26 because that's how old I was when I did it. Right? You got to be 26. Technically, you'd be 18, but I'm not going to tell him that. I'm going to pull that dad card and postpone it a little bit. Why? Because I can. I don't know if it'll work, but I can do it. Right? But anyway, I got a tattoo. I did. It was back in my my traveling years. Yeah, the backpacking years. Oh, great times in my life, man. You know, coming out of college, just like straight up jacked. Hair down to here. Oh, man. It's just a big beard. It's like, you know, I was like Conan the Barbarian, you know, with that long hair, with the big forearms, just holding the sword. You know, and I was like, you know, tattoos are kind of cool. I want to try one. So, you know, I designed it myself. I threw a Bible verse in there, you know. One that I live by, one that changed my life. Yep, one verse changed my life. But I don't want to get into that now. That's a conversation. That's a whole topic for another video I'm going to make. But anyway, and the way I looked at it was this. And I followed that logic. You know, it's like you get a tattoo. You got to make like the pros and cons list, right? Like, all right, what's the pro? What's the cons? You know, I'm drawing this like this comparison list for myself. You know, and a lot of it had to do, like, the biggest parts of it were like the religious reasons. Like, oh my God, is this a sin? Am I going to hell? Yes, maybe, no, I don't know, right? It's funny the stuff we do. The things that go on here. But anyway, I followed my own logic and I was like, no, it's not a sin. Now, I just did it in a place, you know, it was funny. I think my dad was like, you know, my dad hates tattoos, hates them. He was like, dude, if you get it, just get it in a place like, you know, nobody can see it all the time. Like maybe in a spot like only your wife will see it. Yeah, what am I gonna do? Get it like right here on my butt cheek? You know, that's awesome. You know, I got it on my side. It was cool. I was jacked. But I looked at that tattoo as kind of like a reminder, right? So it's like every morning I see it, it's staring back at me. And it's like one of those things that holds me accountable because I know it's there. And sometimes I pretend it's not, and I try to avoid it because I'm like, gosh, it's so true, but I don't want to be that person today. Let's just put a shirt on, right? But it's funny how I think tattoos can hold you accountable. Now, do you need them? I don't know. That's a decision you got to make. Do I think it's a sin? If it's made with good intentions, I don't think so. And I'll tell you what they are good at is forcing you to stay in shape. Yeah, you get tattoos when you're younger, when you're like chiseled. It's like, man, that looks awesome. And then all of a sudden you slip a little bit, right? Some of the times of the years you get a little lazy. You got the kids coming around now, and you're not crushing your workouts like you should. And your diet's just a bunch of kids leftovers. And then you look in the mirror like a year later, and you're like, oh God, right? I mean, I can't believe my wife still looks at me. Ugh. And it's like, oh, I remember how that tattoo used to look on me. I think I need to get back there. So those are some of kind of like the positive things that I found in my life by having one. You know what I mean? I got it to kind of hold myself accountable, which I think is a good thing. We're all different. Some people need to write stuff down to remember. Well, that's what that is. That's writing it down to remember. And I just can't lose this sticky note, right? It's on there. But it's funny too, the argument about like desecrating the body, because that's the biggest one. I mean, if there's one thing out there, it's desecrating the body. And the funny thing is with that, it's like, okay, desecrating the body, right? So my tattoo is me desecrating my body. So I can't get a tattoo, but it's perfectly okay for you to drink a 30-pack on a Friday, right? So technically you'd have to rule out all of alcohol, because the moment you put alcohol into your lips, that's technically desecrating the body. It's a poison, right? We all know that. We don't live under rocks now. So if you could justify that and have your wine with dinner, then why can't I justify having my own tattoo, right? And it's funny when we think about that, right? Sugar, cancer, dementia. I just need a bowl of sugar. Just give me some sugar. Whoa, dude, sugar's bad for you. You're desecrating your body, right? Earrings, all that stuff. Smoking, cigarettes, you're desecrating your body. So it's just funny when you think about that and you put it into perspective as far as, desecrating the body. It's like we do it every day, just in different ways, right? But a little bit of ink on your skin, but you could justify it in other ways. I don't think that argument would hold in court. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. He's the ultimate judge and jury. But, I felt like it's just a funny, like it's like a kid's argument. You know what I mean? But the goal of today was to put that to rest. And hopefully I did that, right? Because I went through the same things. I went through the list. I went through Leviticus. And then I'm trying to figure out the New Testament. And I wanted to figure it out for myself. I didn't want somebody else to tell me if it was right or wrong for me, right? That's the whole point of this channel, is having the faith to figure things out yourself. So I did it. I looked at the logic. My own logic took me to right there, Sermon on the Mount. It's not what comes in that defiles you, it's what comes out. And that pretty much put that argument to rest. So I was like, tattoo, let's go. Right? My dad's like, gosh, man, where did I go wrong with you? I love my dad. Oh, we got such a great relationship. I wouldn't change it for the world. But it's just so funny, like the difference, when you have like that. I don't want to say he's old school, but it's more of like, like my grandma's old school, but that philosophy compared to like this day and age. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's crazy. But anyway, hope this helps. You go, whew, maybe I can still get to heaven. Yes, I want you to get to heaven. I do. More importantly, I want you to have your own relationship with God, because that's where it is, man. That's where it's all about. That's the goal, and have the faith, right? So I'll catch you guys next time. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Give it a like. Give it a subscribe, but only if you want to. You know what I mean? Only if you want to. And remember, keep the faith.